Okay, so just a quick little rundown on what we're going to need to keep an eye on in this situation. So the first thing we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on is the temperature. We basically want the temperature to be anywhere between 25, 28 degrees. Now, when you're introducing fish, in this case, what we're doing is climatizing fish to go into the tanks. If you go slightly up in temperature, it's not the end of the world. But if you go down in temperature, that's the way you're going to get white spot. You never want to go down. A couple of degrees up, no problem. A couple of degrees down, not so good. So assuming that the temperature of this situation is okay, that's the number one importance. The number two thing, we want to be aware of the pH. So keeping the pH a little bit on the alkaline side is going to be the go. So we just want to get this. We're going to put in 4 drops. So it says there 4 drops. And then pH is what's called a colorimetric test. So what we're going to do then is we're going to look at our little chart. And then we're going to find this here, pH. Gotta find the right pH. So that's the right pH for this one. No, it's not. That one is. So the 6 to 7.6 is that one. So this is telling you how to do it. We're just wanting one of these. To be fancy, what we can do is grab our little comparator, which is this. And then what we can actually do is put 5 mils of water into this, pop it in there. Then we can just grab another one of these, 5 mils of water, pop it in there.
Do they have to be rinsed, or doesn't matter?
You always rinse them. This one can be the comparer, and then that one can be the test. So then what we're going to do here is compare the test. So then we go on the other side of that same paper, which says pH 6 to 7.6. Then what we're going to do is we're going to do the test, and then we're going to slide that along until we find the color. So for these fish, if we had sort of 7.4, 7.6, we'd be quite happy. We definitely wouldn't want it going below 7 for most of these fish. So 5 mils of water in each. Then we're going to put 4 drops in that one and compare the color. That was just basically how you do the test. Now, if your pH is too low and you have no ammonia, then we need to raise the pH. The easiest way to raise the pH is by making sure that you have plenty of oxygen, because oxygen is going to affect your pH. And also any sort of coral-based products tend to help your pH. And then there are products like KH buffers. Never use pH up because it'll just fall. You want to use KH up to raise your pH. So if your pH is too low, you can do a water change. You can check you've got good surface agitation and oxygen. You can check that you've got stuff in the water to make it alkaline. And then you can use KH buffers. So there are a bunch of things you can do to raise your pH. The next thing that we're going to want to be aware of is ammonia. Now the next thing we want to be aware of is ammonia. Now ammonia is first degree fish waste. In this case they're saying NH4. So you never want to raise pH when you have ammonia, or the ammonia will become more toxic. So what will happen is good bacteria will grow in your filter, and the good bacteria that grows in your filter is responsible for breaking down the ammonia. So therefore you never want to wash the media inside the filter with tap water, because tap water can often contain chlorine, and the chlorine in the tap water can kill your good bacteria, and without good bacteria you will often have no fish. So make sure that you do not clean your filter material with tap water. Now when you're adding a fair bit of fish at once, as has occurred here, you can end up with ammonia. So therefore making sure you have good surface agitation and good oxygen is very important, and making sure that you have plenty of filtration is very important. Then if you do end up with ammonia, there's a bunch of things you can do. The first thing is a water change. So regular water changes will help to defuse the ammonia level down. The next thing you can do is add products such as Prime. So Prime is going to detoxify the ammonia if used at a 5 times rate, and you'd want to be doing that every day to 2 days. Then adding filter material that's got good bacteria on it, that would help as well. And not feeding. So do not feed when you have ammonia. Now the ammonia is going to break down by good bacteria in your filter into nitrite. So that's how you test the ammonia, which is really simple. 5 mils, 4 drops of 1, 4 drops of 2, 5 drops of 3. Wait 5 minutes. I'll give it a shake each time. Then you compare the color again, and you're basically wanting 0. So that's how you're testing ammonia. The ammonia is going to get broken down into nitrite. The way we test the nitrite is 5 mils of water. Then it's saying 5 drops of 1, 5 drops of 2. Once again, give it a shake. Give it a shake. Wait 3 minutes. Compare the color. And once again, we want 0. Now, with these kits, if the test comes out a little bit sort of browny discolored, that will usually mean there's no ammonia. What you don't want to see is any pinks. Pinks are not good. So the nitrite will then get broken down by bacteria in the filter into nitrate. And when you get nitrate, that basically means that you may have too many fish in your tank. It may mean your filter needs cleaning, and it may mean you need more water changes. So more water changes will help to get the nitrate down, and feeding good quality foods will help to reduce nitrate. So Danichi and Spectrum probiotics are absolutely my favorite foods. Bang for buck in regards to nutrients. So now, the next thing that we're going to be concerned about is KH. Now, KH is a titration test. It is not a colorimetric test. So when you're doing KH, what you're actually doing is counting the drops from the start color to the end color. So therefore, you're going to put 5 mils in here. Then you're going to count the drops from when the water, from a blue color to a yellow. I'm looking for a chart. Here we go. So with your KH, what you're doing is you're getting 5 mils of water, you're putting 1 drop of KH, and it should be blue. If it's yellow, that means your KH is 0. If your KH is 0, then I'm very worried about it. Because if it's 0, that's going to affect your nitrification, it's going to affect your bacteria, and most of all, it's going to allow your pH to drop. So once again, to raise your KH, you want to make sure that you have good surface agitation on your aquarium. You want to make sure that you have anything like coral that might help your KH, and there are KH buffers that are also going to help. So you do not want a KH of 0. I want a KH of this tank to basically be sort of 6 or 8 would be fine. Now the other thing is GH next. It's also a titration test. So what you're doing, any of them that got little question mark?
So it has to be this color and this color, yeah, all that color.
So what happens with that is that when you test it, it'll start that color, and then you put in 1 drop, shake, 2 drops, shake, 3 drops, shake, and you're counting the drops until it changes to that color. And I don't worry about the color, I worry about the change. When I see the change, if I put in 5 drops, then your KH is 5. Now GH, I'll normally want that a couple of degrees higher than our KH. So let's say that one's 6, I'd probably want that one to be at least 8. So this one is done exactly the same. 5 mils in here. They're all 5 mils except nitrate. Nitrate's 10 mils. Then we're going to put in the GH, 1 drop, shake, 2 drops. In here, shake, 3 drops. In here, shake, until you see the color change from that to that. And then that will give you what your answer is. Now, salt is going to affect your GH, and water ager is going to affect your GH. So if you're putting heaps of water ager in your tank, you'll find your GH gets too high. If your GH is too high, the easiest thing to do is a water change. If your GH is too low, then there's various GH salts on the market that you can use that are very effective, and they can raise your GH. GH is very good for body slime, immune system, and stuff like that. So having a correct GH in times like this, where you're doing a lot with the aquarium, is going to be very advantageous for the fish. There are other cheats you can do, such as if you're doing a lot with the tank, there's products like Vogel that will artificially stimulate immune system, and products like Easy Life that will help to give the water a type positive charge. So there's all sorts of cheats you can do. Now the next thing I'd want to be aware of with a situation like this is fish getting along, because it's going to be very predictable that the fish are going to have a little bit of a fight when you first put the fish in, because they're going to want to establish their dominance. Then once they establish who's the boss, then you sort of want the fish to be getting along. But if you start seeing fish getting beaten up and ruffled fins and stuffed up scales and bung eyes and all that sort of stuff, you need to find out who the aggressor is, and you have to get rid of it. Now it's very common the aggressor is a fish that you're not seeing, because very often territorial fish that are aggressive hide. So it'll be hidden at the back there somewhere, and you'll forget you've even got that fish. So even if you just set up a little camera on the tank, or even if you just try and just sit there silently and try and see who is it that's bashing the fish, and you really need to systematically remove the fish one at a time until you find out who the aggressive fish is. Because you don't want a fish in there that's beating the rest of your fish up. You don't mind one that just gives them a bit of a chase. You don't mind having a dominant boss that just hurries everyone along. That's all okay. But you don't want to start missing bits. You don't want to miss fins and miss eyes and miss things like that just because you've got a fish in there that's beating the other ones up and potentially killing them. And I can't tell you how often somebody comes down and says, "Oh, this bloody fish has killed all my fish." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. So how about you remove that fish when it killed the first fish?" So the idea is to identify Hitler and vote him out. Don't leave Hitler as the boss of your tank, otherwise you're going to end up with no fish. And the funny thing is, you can get Hitler out of one environment, put him in another environment where he's not the boss, and quite often he won't even cause any problem. So you need to be accountable for your fish. Now we understand that you can't control your fish, but you can be responsible for them. So if you see fish getting bashed, it's up to you to figure out who is it that's bashing the other fish, and then get rid of that fish.